The 1990s was supposed to be the decade muscle died. Insurance companies had won, emissions strangled horsepower. But beneath the surface, something dangerous was brewing. Engineers who grew up worshiping big blocks were quietly plotting revenge. Today, we're counting down 16 deadliest 90s muscle cars ever made. Machines that proved American V8s weren't finished. They were just getting started. From factory sleepers to limited edition monsters, these are the cars that brought raw power screaming back from the dead. Number 16, 1996, Chevrolet Impala SS. Let's begin with the car that reminded America what a full-size sedan could do when you stopped apologizing for horsepower. The 1996 Chevrolet Impala SS arrived like a shadow from a different era, dressed entirely in black, with just enough chrome to catch streetlight. This wasn't your grandfather's Impala. This was Chevrolet saying muscle never really left. It just learned to wear a suit. While imports dominated sports car magazines and minivans filled suburban driveways, the Impala SS proved that big American sedans could still quicken your pulse. Under that long hood sat the LT1, a 5.7-liter V8 borrowed from the Corvette, pumping out 260 horsepower and 330 pound-feet of torque. For a car tipping the scales at over 4,000 pounds, those numbers translate into genuine speed that could surprise unsuspecting sports car drivers at red lights. 0 to 60 arrived in 6.5 seconds, and the quarter-mile disappeared in the low 15-second range. The 4-speed automatic transmission shifted with purpose, feeding power to a limited slip differential that could light up both rear tires on command. But numbers only tell half the story. The Impala SS had presence. It sat lower than standard Caprices, rode on 17-inch aluminum wheels, and wore blacked-out trim that made it look like an unmarked police car from a future where cops had taste. Inside, bucket seats and a floor-mounted shifter created a cockpit feel that full-size sedans had abandoned decades earlier. The analog gauges glowed white at night, casting shadows across a dashboard that felt purposeful and mean. Chevrolet only built about 41,000 Impala SS models across 3 model years, making them rare enough to turn heads, but common enough that you could actually find one. Today, clean examples command serious money, especially the all-black 94 through 96 models. This was the car that proved you didn't need a 2-door coupe to deliver muscle car thrills. Sometimes the deadliest predators are the ones nobody sees coming until it's too late. Number 15, 1994, Ford Mustang Cobra. Ford's special vehicle team knew they had a problem. The Mustang had been neutered for years, its fangs pulled by regulations and bean counters, who forgot what made muscle cars matter in the first place. The 1994 Cobra was their answer, and it came with a promise written in displacement and boost. This wasn't just a Mustang with stripes. This was Ford, reminding the world that American V8s could still make your palms sweat and your heart race. The 5.0-liter pushrod V8 produced 240 horsepower and 285 pound-feet of torque, channeled through either a 5-speed manual transmission or an optional 4-speed automatic. That power pushed the Cobra from 0 to 60 in under 6 seconds, and through the quarter mile in the high 13-second range. The independent rear suspension, lifted from the Thunderbird Super Coupe, finally gave the Mustang the handling to match its straight-line speed. Walk around a 94 Cobra, and you'd see the details that separated it from lesser Mustangs. The hood wore functional vents. The wheels measured 17 inches and wore aggressive rubber. The exhaust note carried a distinctive burble that announced your arrival blocks before you turned the corner. Inside, white-faced gauges and leather-wrapped everything created an environment that felt special, not just sporty. Ford built just over 5,000 Cobras for 1994, split between coupes and convertibles. The aggressive front fascia, side scoops, and rear wing weren't just for show. They helped the Cobra slice through air at speeds that would have terrified early muscle car drivers. This was the foundation that would lead to even more dangerous Cobras in years to come. But the 94 model proved Ford was serious about reclaiming muscle car glory. In black or Rio red, it looked like trouble wrapped in fiberglass and fury. Number 14, 1991, GMC Syclone. Here's where things get weird and wonderful. GMC took a compact pickup truck strapped a turbocharger to a V6, added all-wheel drive, and created something that embarrassed sports cars at stoplights across America. The 1991 Syclone shouldn't have existed. It made no practical sense. It couldn't tow heavy loads, and the bed was too small for serious work. But that's exactly why it became legendary. The 4.3-liter turbocharged V6 generated 280 horsepower and 350 pound-feet of torque. That might not sound earth-shattering until you consider the Syclone's curb weight of just over 3,500 pounds, and its sophisticated all-wheel drive system that could put power down without drama. 0 to 60 happened in 4.3 seconds. Read that again, 4.3 seconds. In 1991, that was Ferrari territory. The quarter-mile fell in the low 13-second range, fast enough to humiliate Corvettes and Mustangs. GMC only built 2,998 Syclones, all in black with red accents. The truck sat low, riding on special suspension with monotube shocks. The body kit looked aggressive without being cartoonish. Inside leather seats and full instrumentation reminded you this wasn't a work truck. The exhaust note was subdued, almost polite, which made surprising unsuspecting victims even sweeter. The Syclone proved that muscle wasn't just about big displacement V8s anymore. Turbocharging and all-wheel drive could deliver brutality that traditional rear-wheel drive V8s struggled to match. GMC followed it up with the Typhoon SUV, but the Syclone remains the purest expression of turbocharged madness in pickup form. Today, clean examples are collectible treasures, hunted by enthusiasts who appreciate engineering that defied convention and delivered results that redefined what a truck could do. Number 13, 1993, Ford Mustang Cobra R. Ford built the 1993 Cobra R for one reason: homologation. Racing rules required a certain number of street-legal cars before you could campaign a model in competition. Ford built exactly 107 Cobra Rs, stripped them of creature comforts, and sent them into the world as barely civilized race cars with license plates. The 5.0-liter V8 was massaged to produce 235 horsepower, which sounds modest until you realize Ford removed the air conditioning, radio, rear seat, and sound deadening. The Cobra R weighed hundreds of pounds less than a standard Mustang GT. It sat on massive 17-inch wheels wrapped in aggressive Goodyear rubber. The suspension was race spec, stiff enough to read Braille through the steering wheel on rough pavement. 0 to 60 took around 5.7 seconds, and the quarter-mile passed in the low 14-second range. But straight-line speed wasn't the point. The Cobra R could corner, it could brake, it could lap a road course faster than Mustangs that cost twice as much. The lack of radio meant you heard every mechanical sound: the intake sucking air, the exhaust roaring, the tires howling at the limit of adhesion. Ford only offered the Cobra R in vibrant red with white stripes and graphics. Every single one came with a certificate of authenticity and a build number. These weren't cars you drove to the grocery store. These were weapons you took to track days and vintage racing events. Today, Cobra Rs rarely change hands, and when they do, the prices reflect their rarity and purpose-built nature. This was Ford saying that if you wanted comfort, buy a Lincoln. If you wanted to win races, buy a Cobra R, and accept no substitutions. Number 12, 1996 Pontiac Firebird Formula. While the Trans Am got all the attention with its screaming chicken graphics and boy racer aesthetic, the Formula was the thinking man's F-body. The 1996 Formula delivered nearly identical performance in a cleaner wrapper, and that subtlety made it deadlier on the street. This was Pontiac understanding that sometimes the most dangerous predator is the one that doesn't advertise. The LT1 V8, borrowed from Corvette and Camaro, produced 305 horsepower and 335 pound-feet of torque. That power flowed through either a 6-speed manual transmission with short mechanical throws or an optional 4-speed automatic. 0 to 60 arrived in just over 5 seconds, and the quarter-mile passed in the mid-13-second range at over 100 miles per hour. The Formula's aerodynamic nose and functional hood scoops weren't just styling exercises. They channeled air and reduced lift at triple-digit speeds. The formula rode on the same suspension as the WS6 Trans Am, with stiff springs, thick anti-roll bars, and responsive steering that made it feel smaller and more agile than its 3,500-pound curb weight suggested. The brakes were massive for the era, 11.8-inch discs up front that could haul the formula down from license-losing speeds repeatedly without fade. Inside, the digital dash displayed speed, RPM, and boost pressure with 80s vintage graphics that somehow still looked cool. Pontiac offered the formula in colors like bright purple metallic and polo green, but the smartest buyers chose understated shades like white or silver. Without the Trans Am's body kit and graphics, the formula looked almost innocent, like a sporty commuter car. Then you'd hear the exhaust note, a deep rumble that rose to a mechanical scream past 4,000 RPM, and you'd know this was something special. The formula proved you didn't need a cartoon bird on your hood to run with the fastest cars on American roads. Number 11, 1992, Dodge Viper RT/10. The Dodge Viper wasn't trying to be subtle. It was America's middle finger to the idea that supercars had to come from Europe, wrapped in fiberglass, and powered by an engine that shared DNA with a truck. The 1992 Viper RT/10 arrived as a roadster with no roof, no windows, no traction control, and no apologies. This was Dodge asking how much power you could handle before physics and fear took over. The 8.0-liter V10 produced 400 horsepower and 450 pound-feet of torque, numbers that sound modest now, but felt apocalyptic in 1992. The power flowed through a 6-speed manual transmission to massive rear tires that existed primarily to keep the Viper pointed in the intended direction. 0 to 60 took around 4.6 seconds, and the quarter-mile passed in the high 12-second range. Top speed stretched past 160 miles per hour, limited only by aerodynamics and courage. The Viper's body was all curves and aggression, with side-exit exhaust pipes that could brand your leg if you weren't careful exiting the car. The interior was Spartan, 2 seats, minimal gauges, and a steering wheel that transmitted every texture of the road surface directly into your palms. There was no anti-lock braking system, no airbags, no power steering. The Viper demanded skill and respect, punishing mistakes with sudden, terrifying oversteer. Dodge built just under 1,500 Vipers for 1992 and 93 combined, all of them roadsters, most in Viper red. The car's long hood, low roofline, and aggressive stance made it unmistakable from any angle. The exhaust note was a mechanical symphony, all burbles and roars and crackling deceleration. The Viper proved American engineers could build a supercar that matched European exotics for speed and exceeded them for drama. It wasn't refined or sophisticated. It was raw, brutal, and absolutely deadly in the right hands. Number 10, 1998, Pontiac Trans Am WS6. If the formula was the understated killer, the 1998 Trans Am WS6 was the car that kicked down your door and announced its presence with authority. This was the F-body at its absolute peak, right before GM killed the platform. The LS1 V8 had arrived, and everything changed. The 5.7-liter LS1 produced 325 horsepower and 350 pound-feet of torque, routed through either a 6-speed manual or 4-speed automatic. But the real story was how that power arrived, in a smooth, relentless wave that started low and pulled all the way to redline. 0 to 60 took just over 4.6 seconds, and the quarter-mile passed in the high 12-second range at 110 miles per hour. The WS6 package added functional Ram air induction, performance exhaust, and specific tuning that made the Trans Am feel sharper and more aggressive than the standard model. The body kit was pure late 90s aggression, a hood scoop that actually worked, ground effects that hugged the pavement, and a rear spoiler that looked fast even when parked. The Trans Am rode on 16-inch wheels, but they were wide and wrapped in sticky rubber that helped put the power down. Inside, the driver faced deeply bolstered seats and a steering wheel that felt thick and purposeful. The shifter for the manual transmission had short throws and a mechanical precision that made every gear change satisfying. Pontiac offered the Trans Am in colors like navy blue metallic and sunset orange. But the most iconic was Arctic white with blue graphics. The Ram air intake system used cooler air from the hood scoop to increase power slightly, but more importantly, it created an intake howl that mixed with the exhaust to create a soundtrack that defined late 90s muscle. The WS6 Trans Am could run with Corvettes in a straight line and embarrass more expensive cars on winding roads. This was Pontiac's last hurrah, and they made it count. Number 9, 1995, Chevrolet Camaro Z28. The Z28 badge carried weight. It meant speed, handling, and a legacy stretching back to the late 60s. The 1995 Camaro Z28 honored that legacy while pushing the F-body platform to new limits. This was Chevrolet proving the Camaro could be more than just a Firebird with a different nose. The LT1 V8 delivered 275 horsepower and 325 pound-feet of torque through either a 6-speed manual or 4-speed automatic transmission. 0 to 60 happened in just over 5 seconds, and the quarter-mile passed in the high 13-second range. But the Z28 was about more than straight-line speed. The suspension was tuned for balance, with stiffer springs and dampers that controlled body roll without beating you to death on bad roads. The Z28 wore specific 17-inch wheels and low-profile performance tires that helped it corner with confidence. The brakes were upgraded to handle repeated hard stops from high speeds. Inside, the seats held you firmly in place through aggressive cornering, and the leather-wrapped steering wheel provided excellent feedback. The gauge cluster was clear and easy to read, with a tachometer that swept clockwise as the LT1 climbed toward redline. Chevrolet offered the Z28 in both coupe and convertible forms, with colors ranging from subdued dark purple metallic to eye-catching bright aqua metallic. The functional hood vents and unique graphics package set the Z28 apart from lesser Camaros. The exhaust note was aggressive without being obnoxious, a deep rumble that rose to a mechanical howl under acceleration. The Z28 proved the fourth-generation Camaro could deliver genuine sports car performance in a package that looked like pure American muscle. This was the Camaro that reminded everyone why the nameplate mattered. Number 8, 1999, Ford Mustang S VT Cobra. $1999 should have been a victory lap for Ford's special vehicle team. Instead, it became a scandal that somehow made the Cobra more legendary. Ford claimed the '99 Cobra made 320 horsepower from its 4.6-liter dual overhead cam V8. Dyno tests revealed the truth. Most were making closer to 280. Ford issued a recall, bought back cars, and offered serious compensation. The shame was real, but so was the foundation for redemption. Even with the power deficit, the '99 Cobra was seriously quick. 0 to 60 took around 5.6 seconds, and the quarter-mile passed in the low 14-second range. The independent rear suspension gave the Cobra handling that embarrassed solid-axle competitors. The brakes were massive 13-inch rotors that could scrub speed repeatedly. The transmission was a Tremec T 45 5-speed with mechanical precision and short throws. The Cobra wore aggressive 17-inch wheels and performance rubber that helped it corner with surprising confidence. The body kit was subtle but effective, with a lowered stance and functional aerodynamics. Inside, leather seats and white-faced gauges created an upscale environment that separated the Cobra from base Mustangs. The exhaust note was subdued compared to pushrod competitors, but the dual overhead cam engine had a mechanical precision that felt sophisticated. Ford offered the '99 Cobra in colors like laser red and Atlantic green, but the most striking was chrome yellow with black accents. Despite the power controversy, the '99 Cobra laid the groundwork for the 2000 model, which Ford supercharged as an apology and turned into one of the deadliest Mustangs ever built. The '99 Cobra's legacy is complicated, but it proved Ford was committed to building genuine performance cars, even when they stumbled along the way. Number 7, 1997, Chevrolet Corvette. The C5 Corvette arrived in 1997 as a complete reimagining of America's sports car. Gone was the C4's harsh ride and dated interior. The C5 was refined, sophisticated, and faster than any Corvette before it. This was Chevrolet proving they could build a world-class sports car that didn't apologize to anyone. The LS1 V8 produced 345 horsepower and 350 pound-feet of torque, channeled through either a 6-speed manual with short throws and precise gates, or an optional 4-speed automatic. 0 to 60 took just 4.7 seconds, and the quarter-mile passed in the low 13-second range at over 100 miles per hour. Top speed stretched past 170, making the C5 one of the fastest production cars you could buy. The chassis was completely new, with a hydroformed frame that was both lighter and stiffer than the C4's. The suspension used transverse leaf springs, a Corvette tradition, but with modern geometry that delivered balanced handling and a surprisingly compliant ride. The brakes were massive, with 12-inch rotors that could haul the Corvette down from triple-digit speeds without fade. The aerodynamics were slippery with a drag coefficient that helped the LS1 push the Corvette through air efficiently. Inside, the C5 finally gave Corvette buyers an interior worthy of the car's performance. Real leather, supportive seats, and clear gauges created an environment that felt special. The hatchback provided surprising cargo space, making the Corvette a legitimate grand touring machine. The exhaust note was sophisticated, a deep rumble that rose to a mechanical scream as the LS1 climbed toward its 6,000 RPM redline. Chevrolet offered the C5 in colors ranging from Arctic white to fairway green metallic, but the most iconic was torch red. The C5 Corvette proved American engineers could build a sports car that matched European competitors for handling while exceeding them for straight-line speed and value. This was the Corvette that silenced critics and established the template for every Corvette that followed. Number 6, 1993, Ford Mustang SVT Cobra. Before the power controversy of '99, there was the 1993 SVT Cobra, and it was glorious. This was Ford's first full production run of the modern Cobra, and they didn't hold back. The 5.0-liter V8 was massaged to produce 235 horsepower and 280 pound-feet of torque, numbers that don't sound impressive until you remember the base GT made just 205 horsepower. That extra 30 horsepower came from GT, 40 high-flow cylinder heads, a special camshaft, and a less restrictive exhaust system. 0 to 60 took just over 5.6 seconds, and the quarter-mile passed in the mid-14-second range. The real improvement was handling. The Cobra rode on 17-inch wheels with wide performance rubber and featured an upgraded suspension with thicker anti-roll bars and specific shock valving. The result was a Mustang that could actually corner without the tail getting nervous. The Cobra wore unique front and rear fascias with functional brake cooling ducts and an aggressive appearance that separated it from standard Mustangs. Side scoops and a rear spoiler added visual drama while actually improving aerodynamics. The exhaust note was pure, pushrod American V8, a deep rumble at idle that rose to a mechanical roar under acceleration. Inside, leather seats and white-faced gauges created an upscale environment. Ford built just under 5,000 Cobras for 1993, split between coupes and convertibles. The color palette included teal, vibrant red, and black, each with unique striping. The '93 Cobra proved the Fox body platform still had life, even as Ford prepared to launch the next-generation Mustang. This was the Cobra that established the template: more power, better handling, aggressive looks, and a price that made sense. It was the foundation for every performance Mustang that followed. Number 5, 1996, Chevrolet Corvette Grand Sport. Chevrolet built the Grand Sport to honor the legendary race cars of the '60s, and they created something truly special. The 1996 Corvette Grand Sport combined the base LT1 V8 with aggressive aerodynamics, wider bodywork, and exclusive colors that made it instantly recognizable. Only 1,000 Grand Sports were built, all of them in Admiral Blue with a white stripe and red hash marks, or black with similar graphics. The LT1 produced 330 horsepower and 340 pound-feet of torque, the same as the standard Corvette, but the Grand Sport wore wider wheels, 11 inches in front and 11.5 in the rear, wrapped in aggressive Goodyear rubber. The suspension was specifically tuned for the wider track, with stiffer springs and dampers that controlled the extra grip. 0 to 60 took just over 4.7 seconds, and the quarter-mile passed in the high 12-second range. The Grand Sport's body was pure aggression. Flared fenders covered the wider wheels, creating a muscular stance that looked ready to pounce. The front brake cooling ducts were functional, channeling air to the massive rotors. The rear featured unique taillights and graphics that honored the original Grand Sport race cars. Inside, every Grand Sport received unique embroidery on the seats and a numbered plaque on the console. The exhaust note was classic small block, smooth and sophisticated at cruise, rising to a mechanical scream at wide-open throttle. The Grand Sport could corner with ferocity, the wide tires and tuned suspension allowing speeds that would terrify lesser Corvettes. Chevrolet offered the Grand Sport as both a coupe and convertible, though the coupe was more popular with collectors. Today, Grand Sports command serious premiums over standard C4 Corvettes, and clean examples are increasingly rare. This was Chevrolet's love letter to racing heritage, wrapped in fiberglass and painted in colors that demanded attention. Number 4. 1992 Dodge Stealth R/T Turbo. Dodge and Mitsubishi's partnership produced something genuinely exotic, the Stealth R/T Turbo. While the Mitsubishi 3000 GT VR4 got most of the attention, the Dodge version offered identical performance with distinctive American styling. The 1992 Stealth R/T Turbo was a technological showcase that embarrassed cars costing twice as much. The 3.0-liter V6 featured twin turbochargers, dual overhead cams, and 4 valves per cylinder, producing 300 horsepower and 307 pound-feet of torque. That power flowed through either a 5-speed manual or 4-speed automatic to an all-wheel drive system that could vary power front to rear. 0 to 60 took just 5 seconds flat, and the quarter-mile passed in the high 13-second range. Top speed was electronically limited to 155 miles per hour. The technology list read like science fiction: electronically controlled suspension with sport and tour modes, 4-wheel steering that improved both low-speed maneuverability and high-speed stability, active aerodynamics with a rear spoiler that deployed at speed, and anti-lock brakes with enormous rotors. The body was sleek and low, with pop-up headlights and a fastback roofline that looked exotic from every angle. Inside, the Stealth featured deeply bolstered leather seats, a full digital gauge cluster, and controls for the various electronic systems. The exhaust note was subdued, almost refined, but the twin turbos created a rush of boost that pushed you back in the seat. The Stealth could corner with confidence, the all-wheel drive and 4-wheel steering allowing speeds that would overwhelm rear-drive competitors. Dodge offered the Stealth in colors like Stealth Gray and Viper Red, but the most iconic was bright white with red accents. This was American muscle, reimagined through Japanese technology, and it worked beautifully. Number 3. 1996 Ford Mustang S VT Cobra Mystic. Ford's special vehicle team created something truly special for 1996, the Mystic Cobra. This limited edition featured paint that changed color depending on viewing angle and lighting, shifting from green to purple to gold to brown. Only 2004 Mystic Cobras were built, making them among the rarest modern Mustangs. Under the color-shifting paint lived the same 4.6-liter dual overhead cam V8 as the standard 96 Cobra, producing 235 horsepower and 285 pound-feet of torque. 0 to 60 took just over 5.6 seconds, and the quarter-mile passed in the mid-14-second range. The independent rear suspension gave the Cobra handling that solid-axle Mustangs couldn't match. The brakes were 13-inch ventilated discs that provided strong, fade-free stopping power. The Mystic paint was applied over a black base coat, and each car required extensive hand labor to achieve the color-shifting effect. The paint wasn't just rare, it was fragile, requiring specific care to maintain its appearance. The wheels were polished 17-inch units wrapped in performance rubber. Inside, every Mystic Cobra received black leather seats with unique embroidery and a numbered badge on the console. The exhaust note was refined, the dual overhead cam engine lacking the raw bark of pushrod competitors, but offering a sophisticated mechanical precision. The Mystic Cobra could corner aggressively, the independent rear suspension keeping the tail planted through fast sweepers. Ford's special vehicle team proved they could build limited editions that collectors would cherish. Today, Mystic Cobras command enormous premiums, and clean examples rarely come to market. This was automotive art combined with genuine performance, wrapped in paint that seemed to move even when the car was standing still. Number 2, 1999, Pontiac Trans Am WS6 Ram Air. The 1999 Trans Am represented the absolute pinnacle of F-body performance before GM killed the platform. The LS1 V8 with Ram air induction produced 325 horsepower and 350 pound-feet of torque. But the real story was how it delivered that power. 0 to 60 took just 4.4 seconds, and the quarter mile passed in the high 12-second range at nearly 115 miles per hour. These were numbers that embarrassed Corvettes. The WS6 package included functional Ram air induction that pulled cooler air through the hood scoop, performance exhaust with low restriction and high drama, and specific tuning that sharpened throttle response and transmission shift points. The suspension was track-ready, with stiff springs and thick anti-roll bars that controlled body roll through aggressive cornering. The brakes were massive, with ventilated rotors that could handle repeated stops from triple-digit speeds. The body kit was pure late 90s excess, a massive hood scoop, aggressive ground effects, and a rear spoiler that looked fast even in photographs. The Trans Am rode on 16-inch wheels wrapped in wide performance rubber. The exhaust note was unforgettable, a deep rumble that rose to a mechanical scream as the LS1 pulled toward redline. The Ram air system created an intake howl that mixed with the exhaust to produce a soundtrack that defined the era. Inside, deeply bolstered seats held you through hard cornering, and the gauge cluster provided all necessary information at a glance. The shifter for the manual transmission had short, precise throws that made every gear change satisfying. Pontiac offered the Trans Am in colors like bright metallic blue and firethorn red, but the most iconic was Arctic white with blue graphics. The 99 Trans Am was the last great F-body, the final expression of a formula that stretched back decades. It was raw, loud, fast, and absolutely unapologetic. This was Pontiac at their finest. Number 1, 2000 Ford Mustang SVT Cobra R. Ford built the 2000 Cobra R as an apology and a statement. After the horsepower scandal of '99, they created a Cobra that exceeded every promise. Only 300 were built, all in performance red, all with manual transmissions, and none with rear seats or air conditioning. This was a race car with license plates, and it remains the deadliest factory Mustang ever built. The 5.4-liter dual overhead cam V8 produced 385 horsepower and 385 pound-feet of torque, numbers that don't sound overwhelming until you consider the Cobra R weighed hundreds of pounds less than a standard GT. 0 to 60 took just 4.4 seconds, and the quarter mile passed in the low 13-second range at nearly 110 miles per hour. Top speed stretched past 170, but straight-line speed wasn't the point. The Cobra R featured racing suspension with Bilstein shocks and iBox springs, massive Brembo brakes with 13-point-inch rotors, and 18-inch BBS wheels wrapped in Goodyear racing rubber. The aerodynamics were functional, with a splitter, side skirts, and a massive rear wing that generated real downforce. The result was a Mustang that could lap road courses faster than cars, costing twice as much. The exhaust note was mechanical and angry, the dual overhead cam V8 screaming toward its 7,000 RPM redline. The shifter had short, notchy throws that required commitment. The seats held you firmly through cornering forces that would throw passengers around in lesser Mustangs. Every control felt purpose-built, from the thick steering wheel to the heavy clutch pedal. Ford sold each Cobra R for $54,000, and buyers had to sign agreements stating they wouldn't flip the car immediately. Today, clean examples command well over $100,000, and they're considered among the most collectible modern Mustangs. The 2000 Cobra R proved Ford could build a world-class performance car when they stopped worrying about comfort and focused entirely on speed. This was the Mustang that proved muscle wasn't dead. It was just getting warmed up. This was American engineering at its finest, raw, focused, and absolutely deadly. The 1990s proved muscle never really died. It evolved, adapted, and came roaring back stronger than before. These 16 machines weren't just transportation. They were statements of intent, rolling thunder that reminded everyone why American V8s mattered. From subtle factory sleepers to limited edition weapons that embarrassed exotics, these cars proved horsepower and heritage were alive and well. Which of these 90s legends would you take for one last drive down an empty highway? Drop your answer in the comments, and if you love stories from the era when muscle came screaming back to life, hit subscribe. The best stories are always just beginning.